Right, so we're going to continue firm decision making now. What we have is a particular cost structure that we have in this firm decision making calculations created on 3/18/2022. I just to note the braining count code for the graph that we drew with marginal cost and average cost is here. So you would take the code and go into the main. When you sign in, you could paste the code and then go, and we get back to here. Okay, so what are we going to do today? We're going to look at how the firm having a particular cost structure in terms of the average cost and marginal cost picks the quantity and to make as much money as possible. Okay, and so what we are assuming is that the opportunity cost, the explicit cost, the implicit cost, everything is in the cost, and the firm makes decisions marginally. What does that mean? It means that the firm is going to look at the price that it can receive. That's the benefit of selling the product. And it's going to compare it to the cost of making additional units. So let's go back to our calculations here. So we're going to add a new sheet, and I'm going to just copy everything, and then I'm going to just get rid of things I don't want. But this is going to be our, let's see, I want just values. Let's see if I can do that. Okay, so I don't need all of the information that I had there. I will leave the braining count code. All right, a lot of calculations here. Okay, so the only things I'm going to want to keep right now are the things that are relevant to the firm's decision making. The firm is interested in making as much money as possible, and so what's relevant here is the cost that the firm has and the benefit, so whatever the price is. So let's okay. Right. So we're going to assume that firms make decisions marginally. What do I mean by that? It means it's going to look at its first choice, and in this case, actually, it's looking like it's going to 0, 10. But when we look at the graph, we'll actually imagine that we can make it on a per unit basis. So let's talk about the logic of what the firm is doing. This firm's going to look at the cost per unit and say, if the price of the product is bigger than $250, then the amount that the firm can sell the product for is bigger than the amount that it costs to make. So the firm is going to make money by making this product. It's going to cost less than it can sell it, so it's going to make a profit on the unit. So as long as the firm is covering the marginal cost, it will go ahead and make the product, okay? Because it means it's making additional money. But if the price is below the marginal cost, it means that it costs you more to make those additional units than you can actually get for that particular set of units, okay? Should actually look at our graph here, right, and say, how does that play out? And I'm going to keep coming back to this graph, and what I'm going to do, I'm going to put a price. Let's put my price here. Okay, so I'm drawing the firm demand or the price line in a particular way. In a perfectly competitive market, firms do not get to set their own price. The market sets the price, and you as that firm in a competitive market have to actually take the price that the market says. There's so many sellers here. If you try to charge a higher price, nobody will buy from you. And that's what the perfectly elastic demand curve is. So this is the firm demand, and I'm going to put D and I'm going to put F for firm. And it's just the market price. And I'll, whatever the market equilibrium price is. And so as long as the firm can make money, meaning that that price is above the marginal cost, the firm is going to keep producing. So we can see that for all of these units, the firm's price that they receive is above marginal costs is right here. That's just exactly right. And so we're going to note that the firm produces additional units of Q as long as price is greater than or equal to marginal cost. Okay, so I'm going to make a qualification here now. In our kind of analysis, as you can kind of see from our statement up here, marginal cost is greater than average cost, and average cost is going to be dragged up. Marginal cost is below average cost, then average cost will fall. If marginal cost is equal to average cost will change. So I want to put another line here to kind of make a qualification about this. And so I'm going to use this gray one to actually see if I can do it here. So I think it's a little bit, if we look at our calculations here, the minimum average cost was $2. Oops, let's get out of my Google Drive. So the minimum is here. I make a note of that. So price could fall to here. Let's talk about what's actually happening. I'm going to call that the F2. Let's say this is here, DF1. So let's assume your firm, you're in a competitive market, the price is equal to marginal cost, and you pick your quantity, keeping producing until the price is equal to marginal cost. So as long as the price is covering marginal cost, you're making money on those units. And remember, in this example, particularly, we assumed away all fixed costs. So this is profit, because you're now looking at price times quantity is your total revenue. Actually notes that profit equal to total revenue minus total costs. One of the things we talked about is the marginal cost is actually going to be the same whether you calculate it using total cost or total variable cost, as all changes in your total cost come from changes to your variable cost, going from producing 0 to producing more. Okay, so in this case, once that green line is above the blue line of marginal cost, it means you're making something that costs you less that you could sell it for. You could sell it for that green line at first. Something is going to happen in this market to drive the price down. What that is remember, competitive market's very easy to set up the business. And so as long as people can easily set up a business where you're making money, they're not going to just be making their low income, relatively speaking, somewhere else. They would be making what we call an economic loss, because they give up the profit they could make in this industry if they could easily enter it. How do we know we're making a profit? The reason is, if we look here at the, add it to red. Here, let's do orange. The average costs for that quantity is here. So I go across the price. All right, so let's actually put this. The total revenue is equal to price times Q. The total cost is equal to average total cost times Q. And so I can rewrite the profit equal to, and I'm going to do something called factoring now. It's equal to the price minus the average total cost times Q. And so the profit per unit is the price, which remains the same in this perfectly competitive market. We're assuming that we have a competitive market, and that means that the firm cannot affect the price. Whenever it sells more, it just sells it at the same exact price. And so the distance, the height on our graph, the distance between the average total cost and the price is going to be profit per unit, and multiply by Q, get our total profit. Okay. And the symbol you'll see for that in some books is pi, actually, a little pi profit. Okay. So if people are making profits in this industry, then what we're going to see is that more firms are going to enter over time. What is going to happen is that firms are going to, once they enter, the number of firms we know is a determinant of market supply. So you're essentially adding to the number of people who are willing to sell this product at each and every price. And so the supply curve for the market will shift to the right. When the supply curve for the market shifts to the right, more and more people selling this product at each and every price, then the equilibrium price is going to go down. And the argument is that it's going to keep going down until the marginal cost is equal to the average cost. And the reason for that, let's put another line in here. Let's look what happens when we had that pink line. What would happen then? So we would have the new intersection will be here. That's where marginal costs, the price stops being below marginal costs, equal there. But again, my graph is a little too not big enough in detail here. But the minimum of the average total cost is here, it's $2, and this number is actually a little bit higher. So just once there's a gap between the average cost and the that's that green bright neon line, and the price, there's going to be profit. And so the only place where that won't occur is at the minimum of the average total cost curve. So what about if we were below that? Let me get it, this yellow. If you had a price that was just below all your costs, you would say, well, I'm not able to recoup, but I can't sell this thing for more than it cost me to make, so I wouldn't actually make it. Okay. But what if you're kind of in here? Let's see what color I haven't used yet. Is actually not, have not used I think black. Suppose you're here. This is an interesting point. What happens is that your marginal cost for a few of these units is actually below the price in that case. But the issue then is that you've got some units here that were relatively high cost in this early quantity here, this part. And so what happens is that your average cost is actually higher at those points in your marginal cost. Your marginal cost is declining because of the benefits of specialization. But just because your marginal cost is declining doesn't mean that you're going to want to produce. You still have to cover your average cost. And in this case, we were average variable cost. You need to cover your average cost in order to make money. Okay. And so if your marginal cost is covered at a certain point, but your average cost is not, you still, your average, I should say average variable cost, in this case, we only had costs of labor. In the long run, of course, you want to cover your average total cost. But here you need to decide you're literally paying a bunch of people, and on average, their productivity is not enough to cover the cost based on what the market is allowing you to charge. And remember, you don't have any control of the price if you're a firm in a competitive market. In cases like this, where a firm is actually losing money, I mean, it doesn't have to be an explicit loss. It could be an accounting profit, but you could make more money elsewhere. In the long run, firms will exit this industry, leading to fewer suppliers. And so the supply curve will shift to the left over time, and the price would go up and back to that minimum average cost point. Okay, so just kind of make sure here, if price is greater than MC, but price is less than average variable cost, in the short run, firms will not produce. Remember, the average variable cost is the cost of actually producing the product. So if you think of a restaurant owner who has to buy the food to cook, to put in the restaurant, if they can't charge to cover the cost of the ingredients, they shouldn't, including whoever has to cook it. If they need many cooks to cook a lot of food, they should really not be actually operating. If price is greater than MC and price is greater than variable cost, short run, I should say greater than or equal to MC and price variation, the short run firms make a positive. So I'm going to define something now. Producer surplus. Producer surplus is total revenue minus total variable cost. Okay. And so the idea is that in the short run, your fixed costs cannot make a difference to your actual decision of whether to produce zero or any quantity. What do I mean by that? I mean, in the short run, you have to pay rent, say. You've signed a contract, you've paid the money. Now you have to decide, and you're in this position already. You're committed to a certain lease, you've paid for certain things. You're going to decide whether you're going to buy ingredients to cook food and meals for your restaurant. And if you've ever watched any of these very poorly performing restaurant shows, what you will often see is that they're buying a lot of ingredients and they are not getting the revenue to cover the cost of buying those ingredients. And so what we're saying is you should really not be buying those ingredients. You shouldn't be buying a bunch of things that you're not going to be able to sell and recoup the costs. Okay. And so that's summarized in the idea that your price has to be covering your average variable cost. And that just means on average, per unit, the thing that you're selling, you've got to be able to recoup at least the cost of, just think of the inputs to make it, ignoring even the fixed cost. If you can't make money on that, then you can't even, you're not going to be able to make money to contribute to your fixed cost. Okay, so let's stop there. Let's get the share code. Let's hope our share code situation. I don't know if it's Safari. I'll download the image and then I'll put it up.